The latest film in the Insidious franchise, The Red Door, dropped in theaters last week, so I'm going to rank all 5 Insidious movies from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Nathan and I talk about a bunch of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share your ranking of all 5 Insidious movies over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. Click that like button, be sure to subscribe. It really does help a lot. And with that said, let's just get started with the ranking. Unfortunately, coming in last place, Insidious The Red Door. Now, it is fun to see the Lamberts return, but other than that, there's not much here to me to enjoy about this movie. You could see that Patrick Wilson did a pretty good job of directing this film, but what really just doesn't work about it is that it plays like a mystery throughout the whole thing. It's about Josh and Dalton trying to find out what happened to them. When we as the audience who have seen all the other Insidious movies, we already know what happened to them. We already know why things are happening. And throughout its runtime, it just runs in circles like that. And it doesn't exactly get going until like 75% of the way through, it actually decides to move forward. For the most part, it is just scary thing after scary thing happening, and it just loops around that for a very long time. As a franchise about astral projection and going into the further about these mysterious demons that we need to work against, this movie just doesn't have that like the other films do. And so, a movie that I just thought was a major disappointment and not a really good return with the Lamberts in this film. Number 4, Insidious Chapter 2. This movie kind of has the same problem as Insidious The Red Door, as it plays like sort of a mystery where we already know the answers. And so this time it's a mystery about what's happening with Josh, Patrick Wilson's character in this movie. And at the end of the first Insidious, they ended on a cliffhanger that revealed what happened to him. And so in this movie, we're just kind of waiting for him to go haywire, and doesn't really work as a mystery. But unlike The Red Door, I think I have more fun with this movie than I do with The Red Door. The positive side, there is of course a lot of talent on display. In front of the camera, you have all the cast, of course, that are very talented. Of course, James Wan directed the film. And I like how it's kind of like The Shining at the very end, with the father trying to kill the family. It's fun to see that. It's totally watchable. But it's not a film. I just rather rewatch the original. I'm gonna watch a movie about, like, it's not the house that's haunted, it's the person. If I'm gonna rewatch that type of movie, probably just gonna go to something else like the original. And so, for me, a movie that I have some fun with, but it has some issues here and there, and it's just not nearly as effective. Number 3, Insidious The Last Key. This is a film that decides to do an exploration of the Elise character. And so, I think on that level, it works very nicely as it establishes a backstory, why she is the way she is, why she chose to do this particular set of skills, why it would come in handy. And there's several good ideas and plot lines here, but for whatever reason, something in the execution is just not executed properly, as it's a movie that I mean, I enjoy it. Like, I give it a positive, very, very marginal positive review, but it's not really executed that properly. Simply because I think some of it is that it has a very weird structure, as it has, like, the first act about her backstory and stuff like that, and her being invited back to this house, and then it resolves the issue of the movie before, like, 35 minutes before the end of it, and it makes up this new threat that the characters have to overcome at the very end. And so it's just structured in a very weird fashion. And so while it's a movie that, like, it's okay. I enjoy it enough. I'd give it a positive review a little bit. It's not a film that I'm ever going to gravitate towards to sort of just rewatch. And I think, yet again, the execution of stuff was just weird. So, in general, just an okay addition to this franchise. Our runner-up is Insidious Chapter 3. This is a film that it's a very safe addition to the franchise. It follows the exact formula that a bunch of these demonic possession movies have been following. But it works as just a very straightforward, simple, by-the-numbers plot where it's actually a story where even though it follows the formula, you feel the stakes in it. And there's also just some very creepy, unsettling moments in this film with some creepy visuals and the way they do some things. It is directed by Leigh Whannell, and he just, of course, he's a very talented director and brings some things to the Insidious franchise. Like, I think Insidious 3 and 4 have a bit more humor than the rest of the franchise. But I also feel like every one of these sequels, and even though this one I enjoy it, everything's not really as good as it should be. Like, there's some points where they go into astral projection, but it's not as interesting as it should be. There's some points where a bunch of scary, unsettling things happen, and it's just not as scary as it should be, not as effective as it should be. And so I think that's why I think this franchise, ever since the original, has like struggled to have that effectiveness to their films. But this is still a good addition to the Insidious franchise that, like, to be clear, is just like maybe a B movie to me, but it's still a good addition to this franchise. But without question, in first place, is the original Insidious. This is a film that it just is a unique version of what should be a very familiar story like Insidious Chapter 3, but it just adds something new to the mix that makes it a lot more fresh. It's a film in the franchise, or maybe the film in the franchise, that does the mystery aspect of what's going on the best, where we don't know the answer, where we're actually compelled and want to go through the story, through the motions, and it just does it very, very effectively. And as it goes on, it becomes more interesting as it's about a boy who's in a coma. They have to find out what's happening to him. And it gets more interesting as it reveals about these demons, the further astral projection, and it becomes a lot more interesting as it goes along. And by the end of it, instead of having an exorcism where we have to save the boy from being possessed, they do a rescue mission inside of the further of an astral projection. And I think it's easily the most effective of the franchise. To be clear, I watched this movie for the first time like 6 months ago, and I thought it was one of the scariest movies ever made when I first watched it. And when I rewatched it, it was still very effective. And so this movie is easily the best of the Insidious franchise. There you have it. That's my ranking of the Insidious movies. Down below in the comment section, share your ranking over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Click that like button. Be sure to subscribe. It really does help. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.